Welcome to the Agile Career Podcast, where we will take you on the journey from employed for life to employable for life. We'll give you the tips, insights, and strategies to help you build the transferable skills that you'll need. So let's get started. Please welcome your host, Günther Richter.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to the next episode of the Agile Career Podcast. Today, I have another guest, a really exciting guest. And as you would guess, like many guests, he's made a big career switch or transition in his life. I think the key difference today is that there was a significant event that made him make a big change in his career. I'm not going to talk about that now. I'm going to leave it for the detail of the show. It was a lot bigger than the sort of normal events that we experience, like redundancies or unhappiness in a career. So that's why I think it's going to be a really exciting chat today. But without further ado, I'd like to introduce François de Neuville, who's coming to us from Bulgaria today, a snowy Bulgaria. François is a coach, but I'm going to leave the details to François to introduce himself. François, welcome to the show. I'm really glad to have you here.
Hi, thank you very much. About myself, my name is François. I'm from Belgium. I currently live in Bulgaria. And today I help ambitious people creating their extraordinary life and regain their health, enjoy the body and the food again.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks for the great introduction. Yeah, so very much in the sort of coaching space, as you say, helping people increase their performance and, get their health back and those sorts of things. So, but I guess the thing is, you've not always been a coach. Perhaps, let's wind back the clock like we always do on the show. And, think about when you were in high school, perhaps, or near the end of your school career. What then were your career ambitions? What did you think what career were you thinking of doing?
Yeah, it was quite funny because when I was 17, I was a little bit unclear about what I'm going to do with my life. And suddenly I had one of my best friends who just said, "Hey, I heard about the military academy." And I was like, "Wow, that sounds pretty cool." And from that day, I created this dream of becoming an officer in the paratroopers commando unit. And so that's what I did. I joined the army. So I was just around 18, and I studied in the military academy in Brussels for 5 years. And then I worked my way to becoming an officer and to join the commando paratroopers unit. So definitely that's nothing to do with what I'm doing now.
And therein is the interesting bit, because I think, often when you have these conversations, you'll kind of looking back and thinking about the things you learned in the military were probably a lot of skills that you have now. But you spent 9 years in the army, so that's a fairly significant time. And I guess, when people tend to think about the military, they think war and stuff like that. But I think there's so much more to the military than that. There's things like, I think, humanitarian work, peacekeeping, and those sorts of things. And I guess, did your time in the army, give you the opportunity to get involved in those sorts of things?
My time in the army was absolutely brilliant. I loved it. I loved every single day of it. I mean, all the training, which was pretty hard, especially at the end, was one of the most challenging things I've done in my life. But the bonding with the people there, the experiences. I mean, can you imagine my job in the commando paratroopers was I was to lead this big platoon, and then we had the rest of the time exercise, was climbing, parachuting. We had survival trainings, boat training. It was so diverse and it was so much fun. I loved it. And I had a really good connection with my platoon as well. So that was I was happy to go to work every single day, and I learned so much. I mean, I cannot list all the skills I learned because it's way too much. But I think one of the biggest is the leadership skills I learned there, and the resilience, the never giving up. I mean, this is never give up was kind of the motto of the company as well. And I kept these values really with me for every day in my life, pretty much.
Yeah, no, there's some great takeaways there. And I think, you spoke about leadership and, looking at your journey through 9 years in the army. I guess in some instances, it's also very much like the corporate world in terms of promotion and kind of growing within the ranks. You spoke a lot about people skills, which I think are, so important in any career. And I think sometimes people don't recognize that, or, they don't really focus on those things. So I'm really glad you sort of called that out there. And I guess discipline is probably a good one as well, because I had another guest on the podcast a number of episodes ago, and he went to the army because it was compulsory military service, so it wasn't a voluntary thing. And it was interesting because I said, "What did you learn?" And he said, "Well, kind of, I learned to make my bed properly." And we had a bit of a laugh. But when you sort of dug down a little bit, it talked about discipline, and it talked about doing things properly and doing things at a high standard and a good level of quality. So it was really interesting. And I guess my question is, that discipline going from, I guess, a teenager and your teenage years into a disciplined environment like the military, how was that transition?
Yeah, you're definitely right. And this was a really interesting time because I was the kind of teenager, a little bit rebel, and I had long dreadlocks. I was just this kind of person. And when I joined, I was a radical shift, but I loved every single moment of it. And I think, I don't know, it was quite exciting. When you do something, I really like to have this mix of fear and excitement all the time in between. And when you follow this direction, it's always really rewarding. And definitely the self-discipline is a big thing. And I think after the years, I developed this, and it was just a way of living to be quite disciplined. And the funny thing is, when I met my wife and she realized how this is how it is to be a military wife, and I did not realize all those little things. Like, I like things to be nice and tidy, and I like some order in my house as well. And but I did not notice it because it was kind of instinctive, and it was something you just take over and start doing over and over again, and it's just normal. But it is not normal, especially for everybody. So yeah, I could really see that moment. What did I learn, and what did I put in my everyday life?
Yeah, and I think those are great skills to take forward as well. So spending 9 years in the military, and I mean, the way you talk, you absolutely loved it. You had a fantastic experience. It ticked all the boxes. You got great enjoyment from it. But I suppose there came a time when you wanted to make a change, and that time was after 9 years.
Yeah, actually, that's quite funny because I arrived in the position I was dreaming of for all those years, and when I was there, I stayed 1 year there, and I loved it. And in the same time, I always dreamt of traveling. And this year, I traveled to Indonesia, and I met my wife there on a small island. And then I came back, and I started thinking, wow, I love what I'm doing, but I also love traveling. And I know if I wait longer, am I going to still be able to do what I want to do? Because I know there's never a right time. I mean, I was just getting there. That was so weird to quit after all this work. But I was thinking, if I don't do it now, when is it going to be? Is it going to be later when I'm going to have more responsibilities? Or maybe I'm going to have a house, I'm going to have this and that. And I was thinking, you know what? It's never the good time. So I'm going to make the good time right now. And I went to my superior and I said, look, I'm going to quit. And this was it took me like a year to take this decision and really think it through, because there was something big. And so I quit the army. I went a bit radical as well. I'm kind of a person of extreme, so I like that. So I sold my car, I sold my computer, I sold my clothes, I sold everything. I just got my backpack and I left to travel the world.
I mean, that's a significant decision. I think, as you say, you talk about extremes, and it's going from that one, not to say it's necessarily extreme, but that order and that discipline and structure, to something that's totally, the flip side of that. So it's a big decision. It's a big shift. It took you a year to make the decision. So that's totally understandable.
And during this year, that was interesting because a lot of my close friends and my family were trying to test me, like, are you sure? Are you not crazy? I mean, my wife had a good salary. I had a good salary. I was doing well financially, emotionally, physically. Everything was great. But, I had this little voice deep inside saying, like, there is more out there. If you don't do it now, you might end up with regrets. And I was thinking, you know what? I'm going to try. And if I fail, if I realize, like, you know what, I miss it too much, I want to come back, then I can always find a way back. It's always possible. But at least I would have tried. So, yeah, I decided to play the game.
And that little voice you speak about, when it was saying, there's something more out there, did you at first think, well, there's something more in the army because I can still go higher, I can still be promoted? How did you determine that something more was outside of the army?
Yeah, I cannot really explain why, but I just had this feeling. That was more a feeling, that's something rational, because rationally, if we would have think in the logic mind, I would say, no, you stay there. It's going to be, you love it, and it's going to be different every year. There are a lot of different things going on, and you're going to grow go higher in their hierarchy and have different position, different work. So there was not really this need of that I needed. I really needed to do something that I was dreaming of for a long time. I mean, when I was a kid, I wanted to be an explorer. I wanted to explore the world. I could see myself on a boat sailing and discovering a new land.
But like Tintin.
Yeah. But this was the moment I was just thinking, you know what, I just should try. And when I left, I think for a couple of years, I was still really busy thinking, okay, I know I cannot travel forever. This is not sustainable without having any revenue. So the moment I left and I started traveling, I really tried to look around me and see what do I like to do. And I was really stuck with all my learnings and thinking. I have a master degree in weapon system and management. Okay, weapon system is not so helpful. I don't know where can I find a job that's not related to the army. Okay, so I was a bit tricky in this. So I was really trying to pay attention to everything and trying to take every opportunities. But it took me a long time trying to see, okay, what am I going to do? And so I tried different things. I worked a little bit as a product. No, I designed two products in a organic composting factory in Nepal. I just got a 1 month work there, and that was amazing. And that was something I've never done before. I designed a survival training for kids when I was living in Costa Rica. And I also work as a first aid instructor when I was in Indonesia. I mean, I tried different things and I realized, okay, I love this, but this is not something I can do for the rest of my life. And I tried to take some little bites of what do I like in those different jobs and how can I combine everything together to do something that is really giving me a lot of passion.
So that's brilliant, the way you described some of those things there. And, you know, there was obviously a point in time when you sat and did a bit of, I suppose, introspecting and thought about what those skills were and what you could use going forward. I love the way you talk about, you know, a master's degree in weapon systems, because, you know, it's not just moving from corporate to corporate career that you can go and redeploy those skills. It's you know, it's fairly specialist. Exactly. But then I think as you started talking about doing some of the work in Nepal and Costa Rica, those things started drawing out. So you talked about first aid, you know, teaching first aid, teaching survivorship skills. Now, clearly, those were a lot of skills you'd learned in the military.
Exactly. So in all the different jobs, I realized that what I like is there is a part of leadership, there's a part of management, of teaching, and a little part of adventure. And when I found all those little things combined, I was thinking, okay, what can I do every day with those kind of different aspects that I like? And I think what is really interesting is that when I left the army, I did not really know what was the common thread, what I had to look for. And what I really want to say to everybody listening is it's really important to experiment because you need to see for yourself, what is it that I like? And I think that's a big issue for a lot of people. You want something different, but you don't really know what. And more important, you don't know why.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, because obviously experimentation is good because it exposes you to those different opportunities and experiences, but asking yourself the question, what do I like? Because so many people, and you know, so many people I talk to are in these careers where they're doing well, the careers pay the bills, they've got a stable life, it's low risk, but that's something missing. Am I doing what I like? Am I doing what fulfills me? And it's difficult because it's not always easy to bring those bits together. You know, so how do you find that sweet spot? So I think, you know, you talking through your experience, there's some really good takeaways there.
Yeah, and I would say also I created the possibility for myself to experiment, because I created a financial safety that would allow me to stay for a couple of months living in different countries on a really low budget. But still, this time I was not pressed, or I can't pay the bill, or I can't eat. You know, I just created this little safety net when I was still in the army, thinking about my decision, to be sure that the moment I have nothing, I have the time for myself to experiment, to figure out what is that I want to do. Because I'm not telling anybody to jump without a parachute. You know, it's just you don't like it, just quit your job and figure it out. And for 1-2 years, you try to figure out what it's going to be. And because for me, I can say it took me almost 3 years to really figure out what is it going to be.
And that's a great way you describe that, because it does seem very risky when you say, oh, yeah, I quit my job of 9 years. I moved overseas. I did all these crazy things. But, when you look back and reflect, it was kind of a very risk managed or reverse process. Ultimately, you took a year to make up your mind. You put mechanisms in place to make sure you had an income, so it wasn't just going mad.
Yeah, I think this moment that was my rational and logical mind that took over the little emotional part and say, okay, I know you feel you want to do something else. No, let's make a plan. Let's make a strategy. And I think that's the next point I want to say is it's great to the moment you know what you're going to be doing and why you want to do it. It's really important to put a strategy in place, right? Otherwise, you just go expecting for the best, and you don't know what's going to happen. So yeah, that's kind of the process I did, and I have to admit that it was a little bit, and that was not really a conscious process. That's how I see it now when I look back. Say, oh, this is exactly what I did, step by step, like. So in the moment, I was so a bit overwhelmed with everything. Suddenly I just found myself in South America with a backpack, thinking, okay, what I'm going to do of my life. I love my moment now. I love it today, but is it possible to do like this for 3 months, for 3 years? Well, I don't know where I'm going to go. I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know. So there was also a lot of overwhelm around it. Yeah.
I'm glad you drew that out, because I guess in so many instances, whether you're working in a corporate career or you're in the military, often your actions and activities are, I don't want to say dictated, but they're told to you. You have to do these things. And moving into the realm of where you need to make all your own decisions, you need to plan out. There's certain skills and things you need, like discipline and self-awareness and those sorts of things. And I guess the way you've described it is you probably learned a lot of those in the military. They were more implicit. Like you said, you weren't consciously planning out, but the pieces were kind of falling together as you gave yourself that room or created that space to experiment, as you called it.
Yeah, definitely. And I would say that when you're stuck in a situation, or you're just in a situation that you can't change, we really, or in general, people have a tendency to want something we don't have, and just to go and like, oh, when it's going to be like this. And then you realize, let's take my situation, when I'm going to be traveling. And I realize that when I'm traveling, there is nothing certain. It's surprise after surprises. I mean, every day you cannot predict it. And everything we can predict, we can control, we feel like we're losing it. And our mind doesn't really like it in a way. And so I realized that my skills I developed in the army, especially about being able to deal with the uncertain, to deal with events that are just coming, and then you have a split second to make a decision and do something about it. And that really helped me as well in those moments of uncertainty.
That's a great way to describe it, because many people don't like uncertainty or not knowing what's going to happen next, or those sorts of things. So it's quite important that you drew that out. And I guess that kind of leads on to thinking about things you can control and things you can't control. So a good example, you were traveling a lot. You might expect that this plane that I'm going to catch is going to be delayed. What happens if it's delayed? What happens if I miss this bus? You can kind of plan for those sorts of things. But I guess after you spending some time in Costa Rica, you did some work in Nepal, and then Indonesia, there was something that happened in your life that you absolutely couldn't control.
Yeah, definitely. So I was still in this search of finding what I want to do, and I started paragliding that time, and for a big idea to go have a working permit in Nepal and be living in Nepal for a long period of time. Well, anyway, long story, but just I was busy flying all the time. And I went to a paragliding competition in the island of Sulawesi. And that was in 2018. And the second day of the competition, I was just getting out of my hotel when suddenly the ground started shaking. And it took me a couple of seconds to realize that was a really heavy earthquake hitting the whole area. And so I fell on the ground, and the ground was I don't know, it's difficult to explain, because physically I could not give a scientific explanation to what I was seeing, because when you see the ground making waves, I mean, I had a friend next to me, and suddenly he was like a meter above me, then I was a meter above him. I mean, that was insane. And when it got more real is that when I heard and saw the hotel behind me completely collapsing. I mean, a 5-story building just a wreck. I mean, completely damaged and collapsing. Yeah. And so I turned back with, I was so terrified because I was just getting out. I was, yeah, our hotel was just on the coast, and I was just in the parking in front of the hotel, and I turned back and I was just thinking, they're full of people in there. I was still waving at the receptionist, and no, that was such a horrible view. And I ran to the hotel. We could help some people there, trying to free them from the debris. And I spotted a little girl there. She was trapped in metallic bars on the 5th floor. She was looking at me. The building was still collapsing, and I got her in the eyes, and I just could see in her face the confusion of what is happening already for me, but for her, I can imagine she could not make sense of the situation. And with my friend, we climbed up to the 5th floor. So you can imagine the 5th floor was accessible just by climbing on the debris. And with the help of my friend, we opened the bar where she was trapped in. I took the girl, and we saw the mother must have been there. We could hear some yelling, and there was a lot of blood. And that was really intense situation. But the hotel was still collapsing and the ground was still shaking. So I took the little girl and I was like, okay, I'm going to put her safe, and then I come back to help the mother. And I climbed down, and I was running towards the coast. I was way toward the beach, because I was thinking there is nothing that can fall there. It's going to be safe. And that moment, I just saw in the horizon there was this black line, and I've never seen that before, but I knew it. I look at it, it's like, oh, there's a tsunami coming. And I did not make the connection so fast in my mind, thinking, you're just on the coast. If there's an earthquake, big chance there's going to be a tsunami. Well, I realized it soon enough. And I turned back and I started yelling to my friends still, there is a tsunami coming. We need to take shelter. So I had this little girl of 5 years old in my arm, and I was thinking, okay, I have two choices. Either I go back to the hotel that is half collapsing, and I'm probably going to end up smashed under a big block of concrete, or I go up on this little, in the front of the parking, there was like a security post, like something with a fence that's opening and closing. And I know how they build the construction in Asia, sometimes not so deep foundation. So I was thinking, okay, maybe not a good idea. And I saw a tree, and I was thinking, I don't know what. I knew it. I will run to the tree. I threw the little girl up in the tree, and I started climbing myself there. And from one side, I grabbed the trunk. On the other side, I had the little girl. My legs, same. I was like holding as strong as I could. And the tsunami arrived and was coming faster and faster. And then it was there. The security post I was looking before just exploded in pieces. Like you can imagine, you see cars flying out, and nothing really makes sense, because the power of the wave of nature is so strong that everything else is just like nothing. And the tree bended in all direction. I got hit, and I can't even remember. I've had the print on my biceps of the trunk. So grabbing and holding on so strong, my leg were just dragged by the water, and it's like a big fist just hitting us full speed. Well, we were still there. We were still there in the tree, and the tree was shaking. The first wave went through, and we were still alive. I have to say that very split second just before the wave hit us, I was looking at this little girl, and she was looking at me, waiting for answers. And we'd always remember telling, it's going to be fine, it's going to be all right. And thinking to myself, you're a lying bastard. There's no chance you're going to survive that. And that was such an emotional moment. I can remember this very moment, or exchange in our eyes, and then the wave passed, and then we're still there. And I felt so blessed, like we're still alive. And then, well, we stayed for like 40 minutes in these trees, and then it was the night after, and I left the tree. It was dark. I tried to figure out my way. The most difficult decision I've ever had to make was like, should I leave this tree if there's another tsunami coming and I'm just trying to walk? I mean, I don't know if you can visualize everything is down. I mean, there is no shape anymore. Everything is messed up everywhere. So really difficult to walk. I took the little girl on my shoulder and decided, I'm gonna try. I don't want to die in this tree if something else coming. And well, I don't want to die on the way, but I'm gonna try it. I don't know. I felt it. So I took the little girl, I put her on my shoulder, and I started walking. And in the dark, could not really see anything, and I had water up to my neck. That was a mess. And then we went a bit further from the coast, and the city was burning. And well, it was really, really horrible to see the distress, the despair, and the confusion to everybody. I mean, I got really lucky, really, really lucky. And I just want to say that the mother of this little girl and the father survived as well. They got injured, but they made it out. 5,000 people died that day. So it was a really dramatic event. And I lost a lot of friends. I mean, I've been doing the thing I wish nobody has ever to do. I was digging in the debris, removing the blocks, and trying to figure out if my friends were there. And we had no news of them. And I mean, that was intense. What I get out of this is, this quote that says, "Sometimes beautiful gift come wrapped in ugly paper." I really got this quote a lot. I
Great
really
saying.
got a lot in my head, because I was thinking, it took me weeks to recover from that. It took me, I don't know, really a lot. I was a bit traumatized, obviously, but I was just thinking about my friends who died there, and thinking, man, you are still alive. You need to make something of it. You need to honor it, to celebrate it. I mean, just in their name. I mean, when I remember, I think about myself in the street, like, I got spared. It was a miracle that I'm still living today. And I realized that moment, I made a promise to myself. I'm going to live every single day to the fullest and inspire other people to do the same.
Well, you've said so many significant things there. And, as you've talked through that story, you got sort of me in tears here thinking about that situation. And, it's something that, as you say, you cannot explain it and you cannot comprehend it until you're in that situation, and it is clearly massively traumatic. And you talked about the loss of life and losing friends. I think the thing that's really beautiful that you drew out there, that says sometimes a beautiful gift comes wrapped in ugly paper.
Sorry, but just wanted to say this thing, that we always think it happens to others, but not to us. And we have kind of this, until it really happened to us, it's like, oh, yeah, right. Okay. It's not only happening to others. And that really struck me. I mean, I couldn't have, I mean, imagine yourself, what is the chance that you're going to be in a tsunami, an earthquake? It's really little until the day it happens.
Yeah, no, it's as you say, and as we were talking before, it's those things you can't anticipate, that they probably weren't even on your radar. You never thought about. You think about late planes and trains and buses, but you don't think about being caught in a natural disaster like that.
And I think one of the biggest lessons I had from this day was, all my life I've been a bit living in the future. I like planning, I like organizing, and I was always kind of, even though I like what I do, at that moment, I was always thinking, well, you know what, next weekend I'm going to do that, and next summer I'm going to travel there. And then even when I was traveling in Colombia, thinking, oh yeah, and when we're going to be in Ecuador, that's going to be so cool. And then when we're going to be in Japan, that's going to be so cool. And in Japan, I was thinking, oh, the Philippines are going to be amazing. And I was kind of living, and I think a lot of people are doing the same. We live a bit for something that is coming in the future, instead of really being focused on here and now. And I realized that day, my wife told me that for a bit less, almost 24 hours. For example, just to say, you think we're always going to be able to do what we want to do in the future, and we tend to forget to enjoy what we're doing right now. And that was this massive lesson, to think, if I still plan to be happy tomorrow, I might never live this day I'm going to finally be happy with, So I really realized I need to be happy right now, because this moment right now, I have it. It's there. I can make whatever I want from it. The future, I don't know, maybe not. So that really helped me to refocus on the present and enjoying every single step of the journey, not only looking at the destination.
Yeah, and then what you say is so true. And we're so focused on generally on the future. And yes, there's nothing wrong with planning and that sort of thing. But as you say, I'd be much happier when I get this new car next year, or I'll be much happier when the new Apple Watch comes out, or whatever it is. And you're right. We don't often think about making the most of what we have now and being happy. Exactly. And I think, hopefully it doesn't take an event that you went through to help people kind of recognize that. And I guess thinking about that event, and there's a lot. As you described what was happening, clearly a lot of the stuff that you'd learned was helpful to you. Again, survival skills and all of those sorts of things. But as you were talking, there's so many learnings as well that you probably would never have learned elsewhere that have now started shaping your thinking as you've just described.
Yeah, definitely. What I learned in the army, I think definitely helped me survive that day. I mean, 100% sure. And what I learned from this situation helped me be who I am today as well. And I think we can always look at a situation that is a bit painful in our past and trying to find a different perspective of it and trying to see, okay, there was really a difficult situation and I wish that to nobody, but what can I learn from it? How did I grow? And it might be, sometimes it's really difficult. I mean, there's some situation when it's really hard to see the positive in it, but there is always a possibility to change it. And this thing says like, you can never change an event, but you can always change your relationship with it.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's as you say, we can't control things that happen, but we can control how we respond. And, you could easily have in that situation just given up, thinking that this situation is unsavable. You talked about the hotel collapsing and people stuck in there. There was this 5-year-old girl, and
you know what? She helped me to survive, because the moment I found her, I was like, I don't care anything else. I just need to make her survive, because she can't by herself. And that really made me survive, because all my focus, my attention, my brain was firing in all directions just to keep her safe. And I think if I was just there alone, I would have panicked so much more. I would have maybe lost it. I don't know. But the fact that she was there, and I always told her, like, you saved me as much as I saved you. Seriously, we just have been in there together. And that was her birthday, actually. 2 days.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I guess the importance of purpose, it's at that time you had a purpose. It was a singular purpose. It was a singular goal. And as you say, it helped you through it.
Exactly. When you have such a purpose and a powerful drive, this is the thing that's going to get you through anything.
So I'd say, that's a significant shift, and obviously that the event as a whole and the snippets like those that you've described have really fed into what it is you're doing. And the other thing that I think is significant for me is looking at that situation, thinking, how do I help all of these people? And you can take that parallel into any kind of job or charity work or whatever it is. How can I help all these people? Sometimes you can't help them, but if you can just make a difference for one person, and clearly, that's what you did.
Yeah, definitely. And after, when, a couple of months later, I was still reflecting all the time. I could see the situation over and over, and I was thinking, okay, what can I do now? Because I really felt I wanted to scream to everybody, please live your life at 100% right now, 200%, because you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, seriously. And I was thinking, okay, what can I do? Because I had this burning desire in me, like, I need to tell this to the world. And I know a lot of people have been through situation like me, but my message was like, it is not necessary to wait for having a tragic event, something dramatic to you, to actually start to make a change. That's way too dramatic to do this way, right? We all have the tools to be able to change, and you don't need to wait and to go through all this pain and suffering.
Absolutely. That's a fantastic piece of advice. And it's funny, I'm just kind of looking at the notes that I prepared ahead of this show. And, my question was going to be, what would you tell people that are at a crossroads in their career or looking for meaning, that might not have gone through a transformative experience or an event like you did? So I think you've hit it on the head there. Don't wait for that external thing.
Exactly.
It's look internally, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. And I know it's a little bit like everybody think, yeah, you're right. It just makes so much sense what you're saying. And then a couple of years later, like, yeah, but I don't know. And it's a bit like the moment you really start taking care of your health are usually the moment when you're feeling sick. When you're feeling not good, you're like, well, I really need to change. Or the moment you want to quit drinking alcohol is when you have a hangover the day after. You realize, oh, I felt so bad, I need to do something, and we have this tendency to let things go until the moment it's so painful that you realize, okay, no, it's time to change. Right? It's just so good to bring consciousness and awareness in your situation to be able to take the step before it's going too far. It's much easier.
You're right. And or we wait till the 1st of January.
Yeah, definitely.
Because that's a good place to start.
Yeah.
So no, I mean you've described that out brilliantly, and I think as you were talking about your travels immediately prior to the earthquake and tsunami, it seems to me there was a lot of thinking you were doing about what am I going to do next? How are these pieces coming together? What are the things I'm enjoying? So it seems you were sort of shaping up what was coming next, and obviously this earthquake and tsunami then brought some massive realization. How did you put all those pieces together?
Yeah, it took me a bit also. Once again, it took me time. I think a bit more than a year after I started realizing, okay, what I can do is help people via coaching. And I was realizing that I was already giving some advices to people before, and I was just, I don't know, telling some inspiring stories of what happened to me and how I reshaped my life with this. And then I heard the word coaching, which was not really popular. I mean, I didn't really know what was a coach doing. I mean, everybody knows a coach for a sport team, but a
Yep.
coach for life, etc. That's a bit less known. It's getting more and more popular though. But so I realized, okay, coach, but wait a minute, I'm ex-military. I'm not a coach, that's different. And I started having all those doubt and thinking, well, maybe I should give it a shot. So I started, and more than 1.5 years later, taking some certification. And I did the certification. I was thinking after that, I'm going to feel confident. Well, I finished the certification. That was great. I learned a lot, and I still felt like, yeah, I know more, but I'm not ready to coach a person really as a professional job. I was like, pfft. So what I did, I took a second certification. That was great. I thought that would be better after, but guess what? It wasn't. And in the meantime, I spent reading books, watching programs and things, and developing a lot of tools for that. But I realized a moment, okay, I'm going to do it, and I need to put myself out there. I need to tell people what I'm doing now. And I realized I had a lot of blockage, a lot of things were holding me back. And I could identify one was I needed to shift my identity. I was not anymore, because I like to be the ex-military person in the eyes of everybody, the paratrooper commando, whatever. That was great. And suddenly I needed to shift and say, no, I'm a coach. And I think to embody a different identity is quite a step. And for me, it was quite a step.
It's interesting you say that. I've been doing quite a bit of, I guess, reading as well. And one of the things, we talk as coaches, we use the Ikigai approach or tool quite often. And, and it's, simplistically put, if you think about that Venn diagram about doing what you love, doing what helps others, et cetera, but kind of reading some more books, it goes a little bit deeper than that and starts thinking about that identity, so often I think we tie our identities to our jobs. So, I'm a teacher, I'm a consultant, I'm a builder, I'm a bricklayer, whatever it is. And it's about perhaps separating that out. And as you say, you needed to make that shift and shift your identity, and it's to a point of saying, well, as a coach, I help others lead better lives, or I help people improve themselves or overcome obstacles, and I think that's quite important, because you can take that with you no matter what job you're doing.
Yeah, definitely. And you're really right. It's like we describe ourselves depending on the job we're doing. And I needed to tell people I am a coach now. And that was the step I had to take. But I think it's Rich Litvin, wonderful coach, saying that he is a overnight success in 46 years or something. Like, to be a coach today, I really use I learned to be a coach since I'm really young. Actually, I learned all this experience, all those life stories, all those adventures, all those things just made me who I am today, as being able to sit in front of someone and help them with some of their desires or dreams, So it's not, I realize it took me a little time as well, but I realized that's not this certification. That's going to give me some tools and techniques. Definitely, it's great. But this is more the whole journey I've been on since all those years that made me an expert in what I can do. And this is something we usually don't realize. It's really difficult to realize what we are good at, because we do like this every single day. And so it's kind of normal to us. But then when you expose it to other people, like, wow, you're so good at this. Like, what? No, I'm just average, right? And that's the thing, that we have a tendency to underestimate what you can do well.
You're absolutely spot on there, and I think it's this is one of the things I always encourage listeners to do, and also working in the mentoring and coaching situations is drawing up that skills inventory. And I know that sounds terribly technical, and you're going to write down a list of things, but it's drawing out, as you say, these activities that you've performed over and over again, and it might be working in a corporate environment as an accountant, and it's digging a little bit deeper, and saying, okay, well, I was really good at balancing the books. I'm sure that many accountants will shout me down because there's a lot more that they do. But unpacking that and think about what are those skills that allowed them to do the job well. And as you say, and you described, it's those skills that you've built throughout your life, and they're all very implicit. And I think the important thing is for people to introspect a little and try and make those explicit. And because then those are the things that you can take with you. And whether it's a promotion or a new role, a new company, or a new career,
Yeah, definitely. I think it's so important to be able to identify the thing you are good at and the thing you love to do. And when those two things are matching together, I mean, you find just the recipe for fulfillment. And that was kind of the vision of the company I created, was together creating a world where people live with passion and purpose. And I really believe in this concept. If everybody is doing what they love to be doing, I mean, people are going out of their, how do you say that? I mean, everybody's performing better because we love to do this. We do that with all our heart. It's fantastic, and we're good at it. That would be a waste to not do it this way.
And it would be a beautiful thing for people to experience, not thinking about, oh, it's Monday morning again and I have to do this thing because someone's telling me to do it. So yeah, no, I mean that's some brilliant advice, and I think tying that together with don't always live in the future. Think about the now, thinking about what you have around you, and is very important.
Yeah.
You spoke about, and I guess we're probably sort of drawing to the end, but you spoke about doing a lot of reading and studying and that sort of thing. Are there any books that have been stand out for you that you would recommend to the listeners to pick up?
A lot of books. I definitely recommend The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People from Dr. Coffey, which was really great book for anybody. Well, there are so many books out there, but I would recommend what really made a big difference in my life when I discovered Mindvalley, and you know about it as well. This is a big platform when they gather all those different thought leader in different categories and put them together to create a program, a lot of different programs. And that was really the start of my self-development journey, and it really helped me a lot. So yeah, I would recommend it.
Yeah, no, those are good recommendations. I mean, The 7 Habits is probably one of the most recommended books on the podcast. Everyone's taken so much from that, and Mindvalley, the program. Yeah, I mean, I echo that. I think in addition to all the content and material, it provides opportunities to kind of practice your skills and meet like-minded people. So that's how we met. So brilliant platform. So yeah, no, that's been brilliant, Francois. Thank you so much. I mean, just the way you've sort of shared your story, and I think certain parts of the story were difficult. I could see you were getting emotional. I was getting emotional, but I think that the value and the insight we can draw from that has been phenomenal. And it looks so obvious now, looking back, about how these bits have come together and kind of shaped the thing you do now, your purpose now, in terms of helping other people. So that's brilliant. You can see that golden thread all the way through your story now. So yeah, I mean, thank you so much for sharing that. That's been really awesome.
Thank you. I just want to add one little thing, is that when exactly what you say, we can see everything coming out together in my life, but I would really give this piece of advice to people before you start. Instead of leaving it to hoping for the best and let's see where the wind is going to guide you, it's more really take the moment to think about what what you would like to do and why you want to do it. And I think when you have this strong purpose, it's really going to help you go where you want to go, where you need to go much faster, just by bringing more consciousness in it.
So,
And
yeah, I think, sorry,
yeah,
go ahead.
yeah, no, the last little thing I heard this quote of saying, I don't know, but that says, we all have this little voice of wisdom inside of us, and it is as loud as our willingness to listen to it.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I mean, it's just like communication in its true form, you know, whether it's your inner voice or speaking to someone else. So I think that's a great piece of advice. I guess my final question is, where can listeners go to connect with you or learn more about you and the work you do?
People can go on www.chasing slashing underscore.
Yeah, I think it's a dash. Yeah.
Dash, yeah, sorry.
Excellence.
Excellence.com. Yeah. And this is my website. There is more about my story, and feel free, everybody, to drop a text there and contact me. That's great.
Okay, brilliant. I'll put the link afterwards. I'll write up some show notes, and I'll put the links in there as well. If you're okay, I'll pop your LinkedIn link as well.
Yes, please.
And people can connect with you. But that's been awesome. It's been an awesome. I really, really enjoyed that. And thank you so much for sharing your story and just kind of opening up. And it was brilliant. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gunther. Thank you so very much for having me.
You're welcome, and I hope to speak soon. Well, another extraordinary story, and I just want to say thank you to François again. In addition to it being such an interesting story in terms of the sorts of transitions that he made and that military career, and then moving into his role as a coach, just that experience of going through the natural disaster, I think in so many ways, as he said, indescribable. I guess there was a point when we were recording the episode that I was really struggling to keep it together, and obviously on a video call, you can see as well, it was clearly an emotional and a story for him to recount. So I just want to say thank you for sharing that. And I think like François said, sometimes beautiful things come wrapped in ugly paper, and they're not always pleasant to deal with, but is there something that we can take out of it and learn from, and perhaps see something better that is within this horrible event? So yes, a phenomenal story, and as usual, I want to just end with a few key takeaways. Of course, I will pop these up on the websites as well, so you can go ahead and read these. François talked about the importance of experimenting and giving yourself the space or the possibility to experiment, almost kind of trying things before you go headlong into them. So some really good tips there. He talked about logic and emotion as playing a part in helping make decisions. It doesn't need to be one or the other, and it's important to have balance. I think then, talking to the natural disaster, for example, François said that there are things that you can predict and you can control, and there are things that you cannot. And it's really important to differentiate between these two. You can't control certain things, but you can control how you respond and react. Taking rash decisions, what may seem like a rash or an irrational big decision, you still need a strategy and or plan. So again, sort of as I said in a couple of points ago, not rushing headlong into things, kind of giving yourself some space to experiment and sort of plan things out. Don't spend your life living in the future. This is so difficult. Well, not so difficult not to do, but I think, so many of us are focused on things in the future. And yes, we've just said it's important to plan and have a bit of a strategy, but it's equally or more important to kind of live in the now and enjoy what you're doing today. Again, you have absolutely no idea what's coming tomorrow. So really focus on the here and now and get the most out of it that you can. Recognize when you're holding yourself back. You can then recognize that there's a challenge, and you can work through that, allow you to put yourself out there and ultimately achieve good things. And I think the final point then, when setting off on a new path, don't just hope for the best. Think about what it is you want, and more importantly, why you want it. So a little bit of introspection will certainly help you make the right decisions, and set off on the right path. So that's it for now. Another episode wrapped up. I hope you enjoyed this episode. It's been phenomenal. I really loved talking to François. He shared so many great insights. So I do hope you enjoyed the episode and you get lots of gems out of it. As usual, I'd love to hear from you. Go ahead and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Drop me a note, drop me a mail, get hold of me through the LinkedIn page. I'd love to hear from you and also hear your thoughts on the show. Thank you so much for your time. I do appreciate it. Take care of yourself, and I will talk to you soon.